Hello, my fellow geeks. This is Vishal Mehra, and welcome to a brand new edition of the Indian AvGeek. This week's episode is going to focus on general aviation in the country, and we have Captain Kishore Chinta talking to us about it. We will get to that in a minute, but something caught my eye during the post production of this show. The numbers for domestic market in August came out and air traffic is up by 5.7%. About 1.3 crore folks flying in the nation. Expectedly, Indigo continues to lead with slightly above 62% market share and the AI group almost reaching 30%, with Vistara recording highest load factors. That should please Bombay House. Akasa topped OTP charts but lost about 20 basis points in its market share, going down to 4.5%. SpiceJet, which is plagued by financial crunch and grounding of several aircraft, carried only 3.2 lakh passengers, with market share going down to 2.3%. Right from our first episode, we have talked about SpiceJet having high load factors in spite of its issues, which were clearly missing in this month. And its OTP went down to just 31%. But all wasn't headwinds for SG, as Civil Aviation Minister Ram Mohan Naidu said that Ministry of Civil Aviation is looking into small issues. That's his word, small issues the airline is facing, and that the country needs more and not less airlines. That should provide some comfort, but it remains to be seen how Spice would navigate these troubling times and if its QIP would be successful in raising funds. For now, we will go back to our guest for this week. Captain Kishore Chinta is an alumni of the prestigious National Defence Academy and has served for a decade in the Indian Air Force, flying fighter jets like MiG-21 and Mirage 2000. He has been in civil aviation sector for almost 2 decades and holds a current Indian ATPL, FRTOL, IR, RTR and FIT Class 1 medical. He has flown close to 6,200 hours, with 5,200 hours of those as PIC on all aircraft. Besides being a pilot, he has been a head of operations, chief of flight safety, and a CEO. He has executed military air combat missions, ground attack missions, air ambulance missions to flying luxury charters across the world. Kishore was in the original group of Twitter AvGeeks I mentioned last week, and like Devesh, I remember getting introduced to him at TGI Fridays about 12 years back. And I'm so glad he has taken out time today to be with us to talk about general aviation in the country. Welcome to the Indian AvGeek, Kishore.
Good evening, Vishal. It's great to be here.
Kishore, for those of us who don't have much idea about general aviation in the country, can you give us a short primer?
So, Vishal, general aviation, by the definition, basically means all kinds of non-commercial air transport as per the International Civil Aviation Organization, which would basically include private flying for leisure or hobby, charter flying, helicopter operations, air ambulance, flying training, crop dusting, drones, even air taxi operations using drones would probably fall under the general aviation category.
How is that business doing in the country?
Business per se would fall under the Part 135 operations if it was the FAA, or in India, we call the non-schedule operator operations. Anything which is for hire and reward are called charter operations, which primarily airplanes place A to place B on the demands of the clients at any time on short notice or without any specific schedule like an airline. It was always around in the Indian business aviation spectrum. But post-COVID, the demand for private business aviation has really steep curve upwards. Probably because a lot of people, in the absence of airlines flying around during the pandemic, realized the utility or availability of private charter aeroplanes for getting from place A to place B, because most of the airlines were not flying at that time. And this created an awareness, and now there's no looking back. It's really on a upward curve.
Most of us, whenever we think about business aviation, business jets come to mind. Most of the business in the country around general aviation is led by that kind of flying, business flying. Would that be a correct assumption?
Not exactly. Other kinds of flying also happens. Business jets and turboprops flying the who's who of the country from place A to place B. We also have the helicopters, which are primarily in doing hill flying, the Kedarnath, Badrinath, Amarnath operations, uh, whereas as well as air ambulance, like I said, post pandemic has really taken off. The awareness has gone up for people that transfer of patients and organs by air is available in even in India. A large portion of charter flying would comprise of business jets, but yes, we do have other kinds of operations as well.
For somebody like me who hasn't really flown on a private jet before, what's the difference between flying business class or first class in a scheduled airline as opposed to in a private jet?
Business aviation came into vogue because for the who's who or the business honchos or the celebrities or politicians, for everyone, time is premium. And getting from place A to place B in the fastest time was of the main priority. In business or charter aviation, most airports have a separate launch for business aircraft, and places like Delhi, Mumbai, Chennai, Calcutta, uh, Hyderabad now, and even Bangalore have uh, uh, places where the business aviation clients can just come to the airport probably 10-15 minutes before their planned departure and just board the aircraft and go. And for for business clients who are planning to go long range, probably uh, direct to Europe or even one hop to United States or Australia. These are business honchos who are planning travel in such a way that they wake up at their destination and just probably just walk into a boardroom. Is the main difference. You might have the comfort of a flatbed on probably a business class, but having curated meals of your choice, traveling at your convenience at your time, just beats airlines altogether.
There is a dedicated general aviation terminal in Delhi. There is recently one, I think, opened in Hyderabad as well now. What's the state of infrastructure in the country for general aviation?
General aviation is a large umbrella, which includes flying training organizations, flying schools, and when we talk about that aspect of general aviation, the number of flying schools in the last 4 or 5 years has shot up to almost 35 now in the country, which is like probably doubled over the last 5 years. That aspect, the government as well as airport authorities giving a real push in making smaller airfields fully operational for and giving out building hangars and giving it on lease to flying training organizations. That infrastructure definitely is in place. But when it comes to business aviation, uh, when we look at places like London, New York, and other large airports, there are satellite airports around. Like for London, it's Luton. For New York, it probably would be Whitefields and other small county airports from where NetJets flies out, or Luton has probably VistaJet and other aircraft flying out. It makes fixed base operations terminals, or as in India we call them general aviation terminal. Worldwide they're called fixed based operations terminals. So wherever there's an FBO, you just walk in and probably just sit in a limousine and be driven up to your aircraft and just fly out. So it makes things a lot more easier. That aspect in India is definitely lacking. We do not have uh, satellite airports which service business aviation. Hyderabad has Begumpet, which is being used for business aviation. Bangalore has the old HAL airport, which services most of business aviation needs. But when it comes to the larger airports, it's still difficult to beat the regular commercial traffic. There is still some delays for business aircraft.
What do you think the government can do to facilitate the growth of the industry in the country besides what you've already mentioned? Is there anything else that
Well,
Mocha?
infrastructure per se is definitely being put into place
Yeah.
uh, in terms of, like you said, Hyderabad has now got a plush general aviation terminal. Barring this, the taxation on spares uh, is still very high for viability of business aircraft, because most business aviation operators operate uh, on the average 3 to 5 aeroplanes. So when you're an airline, you have a larger uh, aircraft pool. So you have a spare support, and you can have spares, uh, stocked up for one particular type of airplane. But when it comes to business aviation, you probably operate one or two of the same type of airplanes. So you cannot really stock up spares on a large scale. And neither is the business aviation industry in India so large that there are MROs which stock spares for each aircraft to a large extent. So there has been a push from MOCA recently, where 100% FDI has been allowed in MROs. So that might just give a push to the MRO industry, as the Aviation, your last episode also pointed out. So MRO industry will take off. Barring that, the taxation policy for import of aircraft, the cap on importing any aeroplane more than 15 to 18 years old also puts the initial investment for charter business very high. So you cannot import an aircraft more than 15 to 18 years old. That takes away the advantage of having aircraft availability to be imported into India.
And during my research for this episode, for this conversation, I was also reading that getting a non-scheduled operator permit is also quite tough. Otherwise, one has to start like their own aviation company if they want to use corporate aircraft. Is that true?
Yes, so see the certification process, whether you are a commercial airline or a private charter company, the process is prima facie pretty much the same. It's a five-phase process, but the in an airline, you're a larger entity. You have a large number of people working for the same certification process. When you start out for a charter company, you're a one aircraft or two aircraft operation, and you are expected to do what an airline is doing with probably a few hundred people, with probably 5 or 10 people in an charter company. So to achieve what an airline achieves for certification process, a charter company probably would take 6 to 8 months or even 12 months at times to complete the certification process. And another gray area is that uh, for the number of flight ops inspectors available with expertise who are subject matter experts on charter aircraft is very minuscule. So every time we have to find a flight ops inspector who either has to be trained on a charter aircraft so that the certification process goes through, or we await the DGCA to give a special allowance to one particular flight ops inspector to do the certification process. So this is one drawback for certification of NSOPs.
You were talking about FBOs couple of minutes back, and let's say from a greenfield airport perspective, let's say the one coming at Jewar or the Navi Mumbai airport, right? Do you think that there is a higher FBO development opportunity at new airports?
I won't reckon because most business aircraft clients would like to travel from as close to the heart of the city as possible, you know. So like London has London City Airport right in the heart of London, where business just probably would just drop off the passengers and, fly out. Or Farnborough, Delhi has just one airport, so you don't have options. Bangalore has the old HAL airport right in the heart of the city. Hyderabad has the Begumpet airport, heart of the city. So I'm not sure how many business aircraft passengers would want to travel all the way to the outskirts of the city to that beats the purpose or the essential time which they gain by flying charters.
In America, you see companies like NetJets. You were just mentioning NetJets. Uh, However, in India, there are very few high quality aircraft management companies, right? Why do you think that is?
So NetJets is basically a company which operates on fractional ownership concept. That is not possible in India, primarily because the Ministry of Finance doesn't allow multiple entities to own one asset. So it cannot have there cannot be more than one owner for one airplane. So either all four or five of them create an entity which will own that airplane. So you're just making it difficult for people to own a particular airplane as just a fraction of a cost or a percentage. I could be a 10% stakeholder in a aircraft in NetJets, and I utilize the airplane accordingly based on how much stake I have in an airplane. That concept has never taken off in India. Club One tried, a lot of companies have tried it, but the law of the land, as on today, doesn't permit it because of the taxation and the ownership policies.
Do you think that's a significant barrier in increasing more operators in the country?
No, it's not a barrier, but it is definitely a hindrance because let us say I would like to own an aeroplane, but I don't want to invest as much. My utilization is probably once or twice a month. So I won't like to sink in, probably $10 million on an airplane, which I'm going to use. If I want to use it, then I have to set up a company. And if I wanted to use it just for my private use, I cannot give it to others while I'm not using it to earn money off it. So it basically discourages an investor from parking so many funds on a private jet.
It's a tall investment for most people, unless you're really from the top 100 business families in the country. And I think even for them, considering the lack of parking space in most of our major airports, it's a tough task to have your own aircraft, right?
Yes, parking is definitely an issue. The larger airports are definitely making it more and more difficult for business aircraft operations. Like Mumbai has a curfew on business aircraft taking off uh, in the peak hours of commercial air transport operations. Like when the airlines are operating in the morning between 7:30 and 9:30, you cannot have any business aircraft taking off. Same in Delhi, there's a curfew like that in the peak hours. So, plus the parking charges, the hangarage charges are so high, especially in Delhi and Mumbai. You really have to have deep pockets to operate a business aircraft out of these airports.
That is surprising for me to know that even though you own your own aircraft, you cannot operate it at all times. And in a way, that defeats the entire purpose of owning your own aircraft. Suppose if I'm Mukesh Ambani and I want to take off at 8 o'clock to some place, either I'm guessing I'll have to arrange for a special permit or just take off after 9:30, right? Is that so?
Yes, yes, you have to adhere to those permits. You can make a request to the airport operator for a slot based on the air traffic. There are times when they oblige. There are times when they say a blanket no. I had a recent case where there was a miscommunication. We took off from Delhi. You cannot land at Mumbai before 7:30 in the evening. 5:30 to 7:30, that is 17:30 to 19:30 is curfew for business aircraft.
Okay, so there's one in the morning and there's one in the evening too.
There's one in the evening. Okay, and
Okay.
we we assume that we had the permission because Delhi gave us takeoff. We had to hold an hour and 15 minutes short of Mumbai uh, so as to make our landing time uh, 19:30 exactly. Mumbai just refused to allow us. So that basically meant for an average flying time of an hour and 45 from Delhi to Mumbai on the aircraft I flew, we actually flew 2 hours 45 minutes uh, on that particular day. It was a colossal waste of fuel and time. It it defeated all forms of business travel.
If you have friends who own airports, I guess things would be easier. but
Maybe,
but
maybe.
this has been fabulous. I've learned so much about general aviation and business aviation from you, Kishore. Thank you very much for taking out the time and coming on the show.
Thanks a lot, Vishal, for having me over, and wish you the best with the uh, good work you're doing on the AvGeek podcast, and look forward to more interesting episodes.
Kishore is a treasure trove of knowledge about flying, and it was a true pleasure to have him on the show. You can follow him on X as at capt underscore CK. That's CAPT underscore CK. And that's an end to another exciting week in Indian aviation and hopefully another wisdom packed episode. We are streaming on Spotify, on Apple Podcasts, on Amazon Music, and all other major podcast apps. Do take out 30 seconds, rate us, and leave us a feedback. It helps. And with that, I wish you well and happy flying, my friends.